and that was kind of his life. So, Grandma with a new baby, she didn't like being out in the middle of Wyoming alone, basically, with a new baby. So the rest of the family lived in Schofield. That's where most of Grandma's family was. So she came back to Schofield, and she was living in Schofield, and I don't know how she met John Harold, Grandpa Christiansen, but at some point between 1904, 5, 6, 7, they met and married, and then they Grandma moved to Spanish Fork, and that's where Mom went to school in Spanish Fork. But yeah, Thomas Cook, I guess, was a handsome, charming guy, but he
not to settle down. Not what she wanted.
Yeah. Oh,
Spanish girls.
Yeah.
Going for the 3 little boys.
Yeah.
One time, Devin Sherm's a good friend. Maybe you've met the Masons, Lil and Helen Mason. They used to be best buddies, for years. And one time, Leo Mason was out somewhere between Vernal and the southern Wyoming, up in that corner, and he met this guy that was a pretty big talker, and the guy said, "Yeah, I own that mountain. See that mountain right there? I own that mountain." And his name was Thomas Cook, so I don't. I always thought I'd check into that, I'm his granddaughter. But anyway, but
What was your mom?
Sounds good.
I know a few skeletons in the closet.
I was just wondering, what was your mom like? I don't know much about her.
My mother?
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. I know a little bit about Harlan, but I don't know much about
Florence.
Florence.
Yeah, she never met Florence.
Yeah.
She met Harlan,
I
but-
met Harlan in this house.
Well, she went to Spanish Fork schools, and
She was a good cook.
she was, there used to be a sugar factory. All these farmers would raise sugar cane, and there was a sugar factory in Spanish Fork, and Grandpa Christiansen was working there. He was one of the bosses, and my mother worked there, and my father worked there, and they got acquainted. But my dad was always afraid to talk to her because Big Chris, he was the boss. But eventually they met, and one time after a date, he had gone to Spanish Fork, and he was coming back home, coming down and going north on Main Street in Spanish Fork, and someone started shooting at him. He was driving a car, and what is this, and that was the Spanish Fork police, and he always said, yeah, it's midnight, it's time that you're not in my town, so you need to go home. But they actually shot over his head, he was driving his car. That's the way Spanish Fork police did at that time, I guess. But it got his attention, but he always wondered about that. So just a warning, don't be hanging out in my town.
Yeah, spray the license plates.
Yeah. But they met working at the sugar factory, and they continued to work there, I guess, for a while. But
Harlan was the boss.
yeah.
She was a genealogist. Grandma Florence was heavy into genealogy. She worked a lot on it.
Yeah, she did a lot of genealogy. She used to send me her stuff in this file here.
She was in the DUP.
Daughters of Utah Pioneers, yeah.
Yeah.
This is
She's active in
Seems like it runs in the family.
Oh, that's Dad's one.
Now I gotta get me one of those.
I know, it looks so handy.
So,
Just making sure we're still good. Sitting on this side of the computer, assuming it's still working. Could be.
In 1918,
do you want to look at that? That's each one of those numbers.
Yeah, my gosh.
Oh, look at that.
Look how far.
There's a lot of handwriting in here. There's a lot of work.
who isn't the one back for the suffrage movement in 1918? Which one was that? That was a 7 to 10 day train trip each way. So that's pretty big motivation to participate.
I always assumed she must have went on the train. She was with some other women.
She had to have, or it would
A
have been
group
6
that went from
6
Utah.
months.
But I mean, how else would they in 1918? They wouldn't
A
drive.
horse would be more reliable than a Model T,
Yeah.
and there was no roads.
Probably do.
That's my great aunt.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
she went by train, so that was probably a month-long trip, so that's
Yeah.
a lot of motivation.
Yeah. But pick a number where there's a name by it. So if you pick that number, I've got a file here. These are filed numerically.
Oh my God.
And if I have anything on that person, that's going to be in this
Okay, so
file.
This is the
Wow.
numbers.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
okay.
You're quite the genealogist.
Thomas Cook even has a file here.
Yeah, that apple didn't fall far from the tree.
Here.
Oh, you guys.
Us, and then we gotta
Yeah,
get a
just
picture with
get some
you.
pictures of everybody.
Yeah.
You guys look over here for a picture real quick. And this way, you guys all. Everybody over here. Cheese.
More cheese.
Cheese.
Thank you, thank you.
I did two parts. I did that one and then.
So we didn't get one of you in it.
Well, I'm next generation.
So you don't count, is that what it means?
I don't know.
I wonder, all Ken's reading on World War II and the carrots thing, if he ever learned that that was a misinformation, Kev, that was strategy. The Germans had radar, the Americans had radar, and the English had radar, and we all knew that about each other. But what we didn't know, we knew, but what the Germans didn't know is that the English had micro-sized their radar. And they were putting very little radar installations out along the coast. Nobody knew they were there. So the Germans would bomb the big stuff and literally step right over the little stuff. But our targeting was so good, they needed a reason. The Germans were gonna figure it out, because we're seeing too good. They spread the rumor that eating so many wartime carrots, which were popular family food for them, they always are. They're easy to grow, easy to store, easy to eat. They said it's all those carrots that's improving the eyesight of the British and American pilots.
No way.
That's why they're hitting our targets so hard, so consistently. So it's propaganda.
It's
That's
that
the word I was coming.
misinformation.
It was straight up propaganda.
Yeah.
That,
True.
and the
They
Spanish
love
flu
carrots.
was the same thing. The reason it became called the Spanish flu, which this was amusing me a couple of years ago with the China thing going on,
Uh-huh.
was the reason was freedom of the press in Spain. Believe it or not, under
Oh, that's
early
interesting.
Mussolini, because it actually started here. Accurately, they would have called it the American flu, but their press spoke about it. We didn't want the Germans to know how many GIs were getting sick. It was considered a war secret. It would have weakened our war effort to let the Germans to know how many of our soldiers, because it was bad. It was a lot.
It was really bad.
It was really hurting numbers of deployments. It wasn't until, it never did catch up. The war ended. It kind of saved a lot of Americans. It was a meat grinder they were gonna be sent into.
That's true. Saved our grandpa.
Yeah, I say saved our own.
If the flu didn't kill him.
All of
Yeah,
this
well,
might not
or
have
what
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So true.
There were those that came home. Didn't kill everybody, but it killed a
That
lot.
is
And Grandpa got it.
Spanish flu.
And it hurt everybody that went.
That really saved his life.
Nobody was ever the same that went to the trenches.
Yeah, that's true. It
Survived all that.
changed just like it does nowadays to go to war.
So you've read a lot about World War II.
Yeah, I'm a history buff.
Yeah, it does. I watched Pearl Harbor last night, didn't we?
Oh, you get tears.
Memorial Day, I have to watch
And,
it.
in endemics, I was way ahead of that learning curve. Because I've always been interested because I knew about grandpa since I was a teenager. But then I've been following the anti-vax thing for 25 years or something. Coming out of nut jobs in California, and boy, do I know a lot of nut jobs in California. So the anti-vax thing has been around. That's when everybody's jumping on board during Wuhan. Like, welcome to the party. We've been talking about this for years.
I just grabbed a file there just for example. Yeah. But Myron Nathan Crandall, and his wife Trifina Bisbee, they came to settle Springville. His father was David Crandall, and I had to give a history in DUP a while back, so I kind of plagiarized some stuff off of, the family search people. Anyway, so like he is number 36 on this chart. So if you want to know about him, then you come to this file, and anything I have about him would be in this file. So there's pictures, there's other people's histories. There's, if I have, I've done just a lot of collecting, like birth certificates, death certificates, and that kind of thing.
This was a big hobby.
But David Crandall, his wife was Margaret Ann McBride, and they were born after 1800 somewhere, and met and married, but they were quite interested in religion. They were soft towards, and he was a pastor at one time in, I think, the Methodist Church, maybe? I think this probably tells it right here. Oh, Baptist. So he was a preacher in the Baptist Church for a time. And just after 18, in the early 1830s, he got acquainted with some missionaries, and he asked the missionaries to come and talk to his congregation, and they did. And they were, in the Journal History of the Church of Jesus Christ, April 16th, 1833, page 2, had records the name of the people who were baptized as a result of that.
From that meeting.
And from that meeting, yeah, where he asked the missionaries to come and talk to the congregation.